Some of the most venomous creatures in the world are octopuses. We already know that the blue-ringed octopus is the most dangerous and toxic octopus of them all, especially when it comes to humans. But according to Live Science, researchers now say that all octopuses and cuttlefish and even some species of squid are venomous. This is because scientists claim that all octopuses share a common venomous ancestor that has passed down its toxic traits through the millennia. It should be noted that the blue-ringed octopus is still the only species that is overtly dangerous to humans. Other octopuses quietly use their venom to hunt prey, usually using toxins to paralyze something like a clam, tricking it into opening its shell so the octopus can suck out its yummy insides. Most venoms produced by octopuses have a special function that will paralyze the nerve system, and according to a scientist from the University of Melbourne, humans may be able to use the venom proteins to design specialty drugs that could help with a range of conditions, from pain management to allergies.
Brown snake actually refers to two different genera of snakes, and these two snakes are found on two different continents. If you're in North America, the brown snake is a small, shy, non-venomous snake. But if you're in Australia, like me, the brown snake is the bane of every Australian's existence. It's one of 9 species of brown snake in the country and considered to be in the top ranking of the world's deadliest snakes. The venom is powerful enough to kill a full-grown man. The largest brown snake can measure over 8 feet or 2.4 meters in length, and according to Australian Geographic, they boast the second most toxic venom of any land snake known to science. The venom produced by the snake has several different toxins, with some causing paralysis, some preventing blood from clotting, and all of them working together to cause brain hemorrhaging, internal bleeding, and eventual death. Between 2000 and 2016, there were only about 2 deaths attributed to brown snakes each year in Australia. This is actually pretty good, all things considered. They do have quite the reputation for being aggressive, but they typically try to stay away from humans. You'd have to be very unlucky to be bitten by an eastern brown snake.
The Yellowbellied Sea Snake is one of the rarest venomous snakes in the world. It's an absolute monster to behold, and its yellow belly instantly screams, "Run away!" They have a very wide range, being found from Peru to Australia and New Zealand to Hawaii. It's actually the only sea snake in the world that has arrived at the Hawaiian Islands. It's also only one of 2 sea snakes that has ever made its way to New Zealand. But the accolades don't stop there. The yellow-bellied sea snake is the most aquatic snake in the world. It has never in the history of evolution developed the ability to survive on land. This is a powerhouse reptile that can grow to be up to 34 inches long, which is just about 3 feet. As for the danger factor, the yellow-bellied sea snake is at the top of the food chain. It has no natural predators and is super venomous. The toxin is able to damage your skeletal muscle, it can inflict paralysis, and if left untreated, you can die. But despite how dangerous the yellow-bellied sea snake is, it's such a rare animal that not a single death has ever been reported in Australia. When we think of venomous creatures, we usually think of snakes and spiders. But did you know that the saliva of the short-tailed shrew contains a mild venom that is able to paralyze a living creature? This is extremely strange coming from a shrew, considering this is a tiny mammal that looks a lot like a rodent and only grows to be about 4 inches long. They have tiny tails, long and pointy snouts, little eyes and small ears. These creatures are typically grey, and they have adapted their bodies so that they can dig into the earth and hide from predators. But when it comes to hunting, the short-tailed shrew can produce poison using its submaxillary glands and then introduce the poison into its prey through wounds inflicted by biting. The toxin is actually strong enough to kill mice, but thankfully it's not a danger to humans. Imagine dying because you got bit by a shrew. That would be incredibly embarrassing. While this obviously isn't the most poisonous creature in the world, it's still quite interesting and deserves a spot on the list. The short-tailed shrew is also something of a glutton, and this animal typically consumes anywhere from 50% to 150% of its body weight in food each day, according to Outdoor Alabama. Imagine eating your weight plus half every day in pizza. That's just ridiculous. What's the most you've ever eaten in one sitting? It's probably nowhere near half, or even 10% of your body weight, but it could be close to a couple of pounds of food, depending on how gluttonous you are. Eating a whole pizza would qualify, or a monster steak. Let me know your most gluttonous meal in the comments below. Then, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. You won't want to miss the next videos coming out very soon right here on Epic Wildlife.
You definitely don't want to run into a rattlesnake. This is one of the most dangerous and most venomous snakes found anywhere in North America. You can find them all throughout the southwestern United States and northern Mexico. If you happen to live in Arizona, congratulations! There are 13 different species of rattlesnakes in the state, more than anywhere else. But just what makes rattlesnakes so special? It's their rattle. If you live in Arizona, chances are you're pretty familiar with it. These snakes rattle as a warning sign, and it's a really good thing they do that. The rattle has undoubtedly saved thousands of people from accidentally stepping on a coiled rattlesnake in a field and getting bitten. But what are the rattles made out of, and how do they make that noise? According to herpetologist Sarah Venom, the rattle is built of segments of keratin at the end of the snake's tail. When the snail shakes its tail, the segments hit each other and produce a low buzzing noise. Rattlesnake venom is a nice little mixture of hemotoxins and neurotoxins, but mostly hemotoxins. Hemotoxins target blood and tissues, causing hemorrhaging and necrosis. Their venom is an absolute cocktail of chemical elements. Neurotoxins target the nervous system, which can cause paralysis. What's really cool is that each time a rattlesnake sheds its skin, it grows another segment on its rattle, making its warning even louder.
The West African carpet viper is a savanna species of snake that you will never want to meet. According to the African Snakebite Institute, it's classified as very dangerous, and it primarily lives in a wide stretch of land from Central Africa to the coast of West Africa. But it literally only lives in the savannah. You won't run into this snake anywhere in the jungle, but if you stand in the wrong place at night in the middle of the desert, you might find yourself bitten and in severe pain. An unexpected bite from the West African carpet viper can cause swelling, blistering, and massive tissue damage. Anti-venom is needed, and if not administered, the bite could be fatal. This snake has evolved over time to blend in perfectly with the rocks and dirt of its savanna environment. As a nocturnal ambush predator, it can typically be found coiled in a striking position while waiting for something to eat. And unfortunately for humans, this snake has adapted to urban areas and can often be found hunting near rural dwellings in West Africa. The boomslang snake is one of the deadliest creatures in the world. It's one of those snakes that isn't talked about a lot, and it's actually incredibly venomous and very dangerous. The reason most people don't know about the boomslang snake is because these snakes are shy and not very aggressive. They live in sub-Saharan Africa and are usually a bright green colour with remarkably large eyes. The good news about this super venomous snake is that they are rear-fanged, meaning it's super unlikely you would ever be bitten by one. You would have to be very unlucky. In order for this snake to properly inject its venom into its prey, it has to open its mouth to at least 170 degrees. This isn't one of those snakes that can just lash out and bite you. In fact, nobody even knew these snakes were dangerous until 1957, when a boomslang snake raised in captivity at the Lincoln Park Zoo in Chicago bit a herpetologist named Carl Schmidt. The bite was minor, with only one of the fangs piercing his thumb. However, it was actually enough to kill Carl. After Carl's death, the venom of the boomslang snake was analysed by professionals, and it was revealed that its venom is extremely potent as a hemotoxin. Basically, a hemotoxin will destroy red blood cells, cause organ damage, and lead to major brain hemorrhaging. In other words, it kills you. Blood will typically seep out of the victim through their gums, urine, saliva, and vomit. Someone bitten by the snake will typically bleed to death from internal bleeding, and the worst part is that it takes between 3 and 5 days. What a horrible way to go!
The Sorscaled Viper is a small snake with deadly venom, and it's one of the most dangerous snakes in India. It's also so tiny you could probably fit one in your shoe. Just like the North American rattlesnake, the Sorscaled Viper has a unique warning system that keeps people far away from it. It doesn't have a rattle on its tail. Instead, it coils tightly into a knot and rubs its scales together to make a sound like a saw buzzing. This is a life-saving noise, especially since the snake lives primarily in sand dunes where it's basically invisible due to its light brown sandy coloring. The only way to be aware of the danger is the low buzzing noise coming from the sand. They also leave unique tracks in the sand that let people know they've been there. Rather than slithering forward, these snakes move sideways, winding their way across the sand and leaving behind a messy trail of lines. As for just how dangerous the Sorscaled Viper is, a single bite can cause you to lose a limb. The tissue damage can be so severe that if you don't make it to the hospital quickly enough, your arm or leg might actually fall off.
The Egyptian Cobra is another mean snake that you better hope never comes knocking on your door. Of course, the Egyptian Cobra would never knock on your door. It would simply slither under the door and then bite you in the leg. That's just how mean this snake is. It's one of the rarest species of cobra and is not isolated strictly in Egypt. It's found all over East Africa and is seriously venomous. This is also a very robust snake, with dwellings found inside trees and near riverbeds. That means you're basically never safe from the Egyptian cobra when in its domain. It can be hiding anywhere, and even though the Egyptian cobra can't spit its venom, it's still incredibly terrifying when it spreads its wide hood in warning. The average length of the Egyptian cobra is up to around 7 feet, meaning the snake is taller than most humans. The box jellyfish has been labelled as the most venomous animal in the ocean. Tarantulas are docile and most of them aren't even venomous. A single touch from one of these extremely deadly creatures will probably kill you before you even get out of the water. One of the most famous survival stories, and indeed one of the only survival stories, was back in 2011 when a famous swimmer named Diana Nyad was stung by an entire school of box jellyfish. She later claimed that the experience felt like being dipped in hot, burning oil and then being set on fire. That sounds horrific. In the case of Diana, it was something of a miracle that she lived, because most people don't. Each tentacle of this jellyfish has around 5,000 stinging cells. Each one of them will fire into your flesh within milliseconds, at which point they will release a potent venom that causes a rapid heart rate, inflammation, severe pain, brain hemorrhaging, difficulty breathing, and a special anxiety trigger that informs your brain that you are about to die. So yeah, this is not an animal you want to mess with.
The mainland tiger snake can be identified by, well, its tiger stripes. The snake usually has an olive-brown body with white bands, making it look kind of like a tiger, though it doesn't actually have any orange on it. These snakes aren't very long, they only grow to a maximum of around 3 feet or 1 meter in length. But don't let the tiger snake's stubby stature fool you. These snakes are wildly dangerous. According to the Australian Reptile Park, the mainland tiger snake is considered the 4th most toxic land snake anywhere on the planet. The species is often associated with watery environments such as creeks, dams, drains, lagoons, wetlands, and swamps. They can also occur in highly degraded areas, for example, grazing lands, but especially where there is water and local cover. Tiger snakes will shelter in or under fallen timber, in deep matted vegetation, and in disused animal burrows. Unlike most other Australian elapids, tiger snakes climb well on both vegetation and human constructions and have been found as high as 33 feet or 10 meters above the ground. They live primarily in Australia and can be found in places with significant human populations. This means encounters can be quite common. Yikes! Back in the day, tiger snakes were the #1 cause of snakebite fatalities in Australia. They have since been overtaken by the deadlier eastern brown snake. But still, you don't want to mess with the tiger snake. They traditionally live in wet areas that have a lot of frogs and lizards. Places like these are usually teeming with these snakes. If bitten, consider yourself dead if you don't get to the hospital immediately.
The ball python gets its name from its tendency to curl into a ball and hide its head when it's stressed or scared. Ball pythons are widely favoured as pets because they are among the most popular kinds of pet snakes because they are quite calm and docile. They can get to be about 4 to 5 feet in length and can live up to 30 years if taken care of properly. But of course, going near a ball python in the wild and or owning one as a pet does come with some risks. For instance, while it might not be able to constrict a person to death, it is possible for one of these snakes to harm a human, especially a young child. And while a bite is unlikely to cause serious injury, the experience can still be traumatizing, painful, and expensive. They come in all kinds of unique color variations, some of which are extremely rare and unique. There are now over 4,000 morphs in captivity, ranging from acid, which is a dark brown or black with golden spots, to the banana, the dreamsicle, with white or pink, to the sunset, to green with white, which who knows what it's called. Everyone is always so scared of tarantulas. But the truth is that tarantulas are not typically dangerous to humans. If you want to be worried about a spider, take a look at the Brazilian wandering spider, also known as the banana spider. These are the deadliest arachnids on the planet, especially to humans. While anti-venom is certainly available, chances are if you are bit, you won't be close enough to help receive it. The Guinness Book of World Records has even named the Brazilian wandering spider as the most venomous in the entire world. That said, an arachnologist from the University of the West Indies has disputed the record, claiming that the damage from the spider's venom depends on the amount injected. But that doesn't really matter if the spider bites down on your hand and delivers all the venom it can muster. It may also frighten you to know that there are 8 species of Brazilian wandering spider, and for that I am truly sorry. The only good news is that all of them are found in Brazil. Although, I guess if you live in Brazil, that's pretty bad news.
In Malaysia, king cobras are basically everywhere. You can step on them just walking down the street, and they can even bite you while you're just doing your business sitting on the toilet. Well, it's not that dramatic, but they are still around. A very unlucky man recently had a rather grim encounter with one of these snakes. He was only 28 years old, working on the west coast of Borneo. He went to his house, sat down to use his toilet, and was pretty upset to say the least when a king cobra slithered out of nowhere and bit him on his left arm. The snake must have slithered into the toilet when he wasn't looking. Jeez, at least knock first. Luckily, he got the cobra off his arm, then managed to come back and beat the snake to death. He then took the snake with him to the hospital so that they could identify the deadly serpent and give him the proper antivenom. He lived to tell the tale, though the experience was ridiculously painful. This guy is actually quite lucky to be alive. King cobras can kill a person within just 30 minutes of biting them. Plus, a single bite comes with enough poison to kill 20 grown men. The bite from a king cobra can even kill an elephant. The fact that this young man had enough time to beat the cobra to death and get to the hospital is a miracle. Most people aren't so lucky.
The Malayan Crate is a slippery bugger. According to Thailand snakes, about 50% of all bites from this thin serpent result in death. This is even true with the administration of antivenom. If no treatment is given, death is almost always inevitable. Based on the data of toxicity levels of terrestrial snakes, the Malayan Crate actually ranks 3rd for toxicity, meaning it's more than just deadly. This snake is also known as the blue crate, and they can be found all over Thailand and other countries in Southeast Asia. They are relatively rare, and they are very distinct. The snake has black splotches with white stripes in between, and it typically lives near rice fields and dams. The Malayan Crate will move into a rat hole and spend most of its time hunting lizards, frogs, and other small animals. If bitten by one of these snakes on your next vacation to Thailand, you better have a good immune system. The first symptom is nausea, followed by vomiting and weakness. Within 1 hour of being bitten, respiratory failure could occur, leading to death. What's really strange is that the bite itself is sometimes painless. You may not even know you've been bitten until you start to get sick, and before long, your lungs could stop working and your vacation will be over quicker than you thought. Scorpions are the worst. Spiders are scary, but scorpions are straight up mean. They look meaner than spiders, and I absolutely hate the way they skitter around on the ground with their venomous tails in the air ready to strike. One of the scorpions you truly need to be afraid of is the fat-tailed scorpion. There are 18 species of this scorpion, and they are all considered to be some of the most dangerous critters in the world because of their lethal venom and rude, aggressive attitudes. These scorpions are extremely unfriendly, which is why they are so terrifying. Even if you don't immediately threaten the scorpion, it might make its way over to you and sting your hand just because it doesn't like the look of your face. The most notable characteristic of this scorpion is its tail, which is unusually thick, hence the name fat tail. As for the poison aspect, it is indeed lethal to humans. A single sting will inject neurotoxins into your bloodstream, and these act very fast to cause paralysis and respiratory failure. Not to mention, it probably hurts a whole lot. According to Scorpion Worlds, the fat-tailed scorpions live mostly in deserts and temporal regions that have sandy soils. They hide in burrows during the hottest hours of the day and come out at night to wreak havoc on anyone silly enough to be in their territory.
Sea snakes are some of the most venomous in the world. As horrifying as it is, there are about 60 species of sea snake slithering through the waterways around our planet. Most are docile, and to be honest, you don't have a very high likelihood of running into a sea snake while at the beach. However, if you happen to be in Southeast Asia, you could find yourself facing off against the beaked sea snake, a horrible creature with some of the most potent venom in the world. It's also known as the common sea snake, hook-nosed sea snake, and the Volocadon sea snake. This reptile lives in estuaries and lagoons and often gets tangled in local fishing nets. This is why fishermen are more frequently bitten by this snake than anyone else. And according to Discover magazine, the beaked sea snake has venom more potent than that of the cobra or the rattlesnake. Its fangs are only 4 millimeters long, but its jaws can stretch widely, allowing it to swallow its prey whole. This snake feeds mostly on shrimp and catfish by lurking in the shallow, murky bottoms in mangrove swamps and coastal waters. They locate their prey by touch and smell. Like other snakes, it waits for its victim to stop struggling before consuming it head first. The big sea snake is active during the day and at night. They don't need a lot of sleep. They're also able to dive 328 feet or 100 meters and stay underwater for 5 hours before resurfacing. Just 1.5 milligrams of this snake's venom is 4 to 8 times more deadly than cobra venom. That's a whole lot of scary in one small little package.
The coastal taipan is yet another horribly dangerous snake. This is one you will find mostly around the continent of Australia and even on the island of New Guinea. According to most professional toxicologists, the coastal taipan is either the third or fourth most venomous snake in the world. There is still some speculation on just what constitutes the most venomous. This serpent was first described by a German naturalist in 1867, and since then 2 subspecies have been recognised. The coastal taipan is considered to be the longest venomous snake in the country of Australia. An adult can grow to be almost 7 feet in length. And even though the inland taipan is more venomous, it's not quite as long. As for the appearance of the snake, it actually looks a lot like a black mamba. The coastal taipan has a relatively slender body, a large head, and big beady black eyes. I know that I already said that box jellyfish is the most venomous animal in the ocean, but it actually has a competitor. That is, a rather innocuous and unsuspecting competitor. I am talking about the cone snail, and they are extremely deadly. You definitely wouldn't think that the cone snail is dangerous just by looking at it. It has a beautiful shell with a colourful pattern, which might attract the average beachcomber to pick it up. But look out! Within the colourful shell is a deadly secret. When this creature feels that prey is swimming by, or that a threat is near, it can shoot out a needle-like spear from its mouth quicker than you can blink. If you're a fish, you will be food in just a few seconds. But if you're a person who was silly enough to try and pick up the cone snail, you probably wouldn't even realise that you were stung. The venom injected by the cone snail has a special pain-killing property, kind of like the needle of a mosquito, that means you won't have any feeling at all that you were stabbed by a sneaky little snail until it's too late. Once the poison enters your system, it might take a few minutes or a few days, but eventually you will start to feel numb and tingly. Considering that just a few microliters is enough to kill a full 10 people, it is absolutely crucial you get to a doctor immediately. There is no anti-venom for cone snails, but at least a doctor can try to prevent the toxins from reaching other parts of your body. However, if you shrug it off, some of the chemicals inside are 10,000 times stronger than morphine, and they'll basically lead to a slow and relatively miserable demise.
There are not really a lot of blue snakes just slithering and hanging around. It's a very rare color for a snake, and one that belongs exclusively to the blue pit viper. Even though the snake looks very beautiful with its electric blue coloring, it's actually extremely deadly and has one of the most dangerous bites of any snake in the entire world. The blue viper has such strong venom that a single bite can cause bleeding, not only externally, but internally too. In the worst cases, this can prove fatal. Oh, and they also happen to be super aggressive. Great! But why is the blue viper so blue? It's actually a subspecies found only in Indonesia, and actually, they aren't usually blue. These snakes are almost always green, with the blue variety being extremely rare. This is because even 2 blue snakes can give birth to green babies. Blue vipers are about as rare as yellow penguins. Though beautiful, it would be in your best interest to stay far away from this Murphy snake.
The tiger snake is definitely the most adorable serpent on the list for today, and that's really saying something. At least, they're adorable when they're small. It's not until they get huge and mean that they become suddenly terrifying. In any case, the tiger snake is so unique that you're unlikely to ever confuse it with a different type of slithering animal. It has black and yellow striping, quite similar to that of a tiger, and it doesn't quite look as dangerous as the other snakes we've talked about today. The total length of the tiger snake varies from anywhere between 3 feet and 6 feet, and their habitat is also just as broad. They live in the marshes, open forests, and even the grasslands of Australia. You can find tiger snakes all over the continent, but most Australians don't even know about the fearsome reputation of the snake. That's because most people will never encounter one. Tiger snakes are extremely rare animals, and even though they look pretty harmless when they're small, compared to a cobra or a coral snake, the tiger snake is extremely aggressive and highly toxic. Not only is it completely unafraid to attack you, but also a single bite could leave you blue and breathless. The inland taipan snake is a nightmare. They are highly venomous and scattered across northern Australia and parts of central Australia. Out of all the snakes in the world, this relatively unknown reptile has one of the most potent venoms ever. Contained within its venom are potent neurotoxins that cause paralysis and muscle weakness. They also contain procoagulants that interfere with blood clotting and put you at risk of serious bleeding. Then there is the milder local effect at the site of the bite, where you will see bruising, swelling, and feel a whole lot of pain. The only good news is that in Australia, these horrible serpents don't cause a whole lot of deaths, but they are still dangerous. If you are bitten, sometimes symptoms don't show for several hours. Then, all of a sudden, you are majorly paralysed and can't make it to hospital. 90% of Taipan snake bites, according to toxinology.com, result in significant envenoming, which can often lead to death without immediate delivery of the antivenom.
The blue crate is an exceptional snake whose venom contains neurotoxins that directly attack the human nervous system. After envenomation, a person's nervous system will shut down and death swiftly occurs within just 12 short hours. When left untreated, the mortality rate is upwards of 70%. Even if you manage to get the proper antivenom, you still have a 50% chance of dying. The blue crate is without a doubt the most terrifying snake in Malaysia, purely based on its deadliness. But what's really weird is that the bite doesn't actually hurt very much. There's usually no pain at the location where the fangs pierce the skin. This means a lot of people don't even know they've been bitten. Sometimes a blue crate will sneak into a village, slither into somebody's house where they lay asleep on the floor and bite them. Because there's no pain, the victim will often wake up already dying, suffering respiratory failure and complete paralysis of muscles and nerves. Suffice to say, this is not a great way to go.
The Mojave Green rattlesnake is one of the most terrifying snakes in North America. And while rattlesnakes are of course pretty common, the Mojave Green is a special case. Keep in mind that there are many different types of rattlesnakes, most of them spread throughout the United States and Mexico. The Mojave Green is not the same as the western diamondback rattlesnake. They're two totally different animals. The Mojave Green lives in the south of California, all the way to the Sonoran Desert. And what really separates the snake from others is that it kind of looks green. It's not completely green, but it has an extremely light brown colouring that makes it appear greener than other rattlesnakes. In terms of pure danger, you can expect a bite from the Mojave Green rattlesnake to be just as horrifying as from any other venomous rattlesnakes found in a North American desert. If bitten by one of these fascinating creatures, you will need medical attention immediately. Before we look at one of the deadliest creatures in the world at the bottom of our list, let's check out the duck-billed platypus. This is one of the few mammals living that can produce venom. The platypus is already known as a biological anomaly, but the fact that it can produce venom from its legs makes it just impossible. You really have to wonder how this thing evolved into what it is today. While its venom is not the most dangerous in the world, it has been described as excruciatingly painful. You really won't die from a platypus sting, as the venom is not overly potent for humans. And besides that, the chances of you being pricked by the stinger protruding from the hind legs of the male platypus is at least 10,000 to 1. First, you would have to find a platypus, then you would actually have to grab its legs and let it sting you. Unlike the venom from snakes, the venom produced by the platypus has no necrotizing component. This means it won't make the area around the wound get all rotten and dead. However, it has been shown that the area around the wound will swell rapidly and then spread outwards, and as the swelling spreads, so does the pain. The pain from being stung by a seemingly innocent platypus can be enough to incapacitate you and knock you out cold.
A couple of shoppers in Australia got a bit more than they bargained for at their local grocer. They found a baby pale-headed snake inside their bag of fresh produce. It happened to a couple in Sydney. They purchased a bag of supermarket lettuce and found the rare venomous snake staring back at them once they got home. At first, the couple didn't know what to do. The reptile was pretty small and seemed to be sleeping when they opened the bag. Not knowing what kind of snake it was, the couple were wise to stay away and call animal services. Animal services told them on the phone to be careful because it could be a baby eastern brown snake, one of the most venomous and aggressive in the whole country. It was after the couple shared pictures that they were told the snake was medically significant. They found out later that medically significant means if bitten, you must go to the hospital immediately. Nobody is sure how the snake got into the lettuce. These are pretty shy snakes, and luckily they have no recorded fatalities. The animal services finally came and took the snake away from the couple, but if one of them had stuck their hand in the bag by accident, they would have been in some big trouble.
Let's take a break from all the horror just for 1 second to check out the rarest snake in the world. The St. Lucia racer is not especially dangerous, but according to a 5-month extensive survey done on the small island of St. Lucia, it turns out there are only 18 of these snakes left on Earth. This is incredible because for 40 years, locals thought the snake had gone extinct. It had been thought for decades that the invasive mongooses had killed off all the St. Lucia racers. Then, in 1973, a single St. Lucia racer was found on a small protected islet. Now, scientists believe there are as many as 18 left scattered somewhere on the island, which makes the St. Lucia racer the rarest snake in the world. Now that the island of St. Lucia is free of the mongooses that had originally killed most of the native reptilian inhabitants, these snakes are making a comeback. They aren't dangerous, but they are the rarest. The Deathstalker scorpion gets its name for a very good reason. This is the most feared scorpion on Earth. It is also known as the Palestinian yellow scorpion, and it is so lethal that I get nervous just talking about it. The typical Deathstalker scorpion will be anywhere from 1 to 3 inches in length, with a minuscule weight of only about 2 grams. But you know what they say, the smaller the scorpion, the deadlier the poison. And that's exactly the case with this freakish creature. The venom from the Deathstalker is extremely complex. It is composed of both neurotoxins and cardiotoxins, and these put together cause dysfunction with the respiratory system and the cardiovascular system. In other words, your body will be severely damaged after a sting. Perhaps more interesting than the deadly effects of the Deathstalker venom is its potential to heal. Believe it or not, Deathstalker venom is actually used in medicine in some potential treatments of cancer tumours thanks to a special component known as a chlorotoxin. Further research may reveal that the venom is also useful when used against the devastating effects of diabetes.
The mangrove snake is actually one of the least known venomous serpents in the entire world. Have you heard of it? No? Didn't think so. It's a very unique looking animal, slender with narrow yellow bands segmented across its black body. Another name for the mangrove snake is the yellow-ringed cat snake. The eye structure allows it to see a lot better at night when it is most active and on the hunt. This thing just looks venomous. It can normally be found coiled around mangrove branches, hence the name, that hang over coastal waters. In other words, if you're doing some kayaking at night, you'd better be careful of mangrove snakes in the trees above. But where do these venomous snakes live? Primarily in Southeast Asia. They can be found all throughout Indonesia and Malaysia, through Thailand, all the way to Vietnam. And even more horrifying is that according to the Smithsonian National Zoo, a population of mangrove snakes was accidentally introduced to Texas. As for just how venomous the mangrove snake is, most people won't actually die from a single bite. It has rear fangs that inject its victims with mild venom. It uses this venom for hunting its prey, which primarily consists of birds, though the venom has little effect on land animals like mice and other small mammals. In humans, it's not exactly lethal, but it will cause discoloration of the skin and agonizing pain for the unlucky person that was bit.
Sea kraits are the most dangerous and fascinating animals we're going to be talking about today. There are actually 5 names that have been given to this one species, which has made identifying the snake extremely confusing. Sea kraits are often referred to as banded sea kraits, banded sea snakes, or even yellow-lipped sea kraits. But the truth is that it's really just a sea krait, and it's easily identifiable by its blue and black pattern of stripes. The term krait refers to a type of venomous snake found primarily in Asia, but there are some significant differences between a sea krait and a normal land snake. The first major difference is in the tail. Because sea kraits have developed special paddle-like tails for swimming through water, they do look a little different from standard land snakes. But there's also a big difference between sea snakes and sea kraits. Sea snakes live in the water and don't spend any of their time on land, whereas sea kraits can go from the sea to the land without any problem. Sea kraits spend an equal amount of time underwater and slithering along the ground. They're basically land and water hybrids. Oh yes, and they are one of the most lethal creatures in the world. The sea krait has venom 10 times more powerful than a rattlesnake. The only good news is that the sea krait is generally very peaceful and will only attack when cornered. The bad news is that if you're hanging around in Asia, specifically in Southeast Asia, you can't escape the sea krait. They're on land and in the water. Next thing you know, they'll be flying through the skies. All these snakes are pretty rare and unique, but out of all of them, which one do you think is the scariest? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and don't be shy. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for all the newest videos from the channel.